My parents thought it would be hilarious if I missed my flight home. Let's see what she can do. Hi, my name is Kala, and my family. They decided my life was nothing more than a joke. It started with a lie, one that left me stranded, alone, at an airport, waiting for a flight that wasn't even real. At first, I thought it was a mistake, but then I saw the messages. Laughing at me, mocking me. They didn't forget me. They wanted to leave me behind. But the worst part? That was just the beginning. They stole from me, manipulated me, used my name to take out loans I never agreed to. And when I finally cut them off, when I refused to be their safety net, they tried to ruin me. Public humiliation, lies, threats. They did everything they could to make sure I failed without them. And for a while, I believed them. The airport buzzed with life. Loudspeaker announcements, hurried footsteps, distant laughter. But I stood still, my duffel bag slipping from my grip as I reread the flight confirmation for the third time. Yesterday. The ticket was booked for yesterday. A cold weight settled in my stomach. I scrambled for my phone, my fingers clumsy as I dialed my father's number. The call rang, once, twice, voicemail. I tried again. Nothing. My chest tightened. My heart hammered against my ribs as I scrolled through my messages, hoping, praying for some kind of explanation. And then my phone buzzed. Ronan! Damn, sis! Looks like you're stuck. Let's see how you survive now. My blood turned to ice. This wasn't a mistake. It was a joke, a cruel, twisted game, orchestrated by my own family. I forced my feet to move, scanning the crowd like I could somehow will them back. Like this was some kind of sick prank, and any second now, my father would appear, arms crossed, waiting for me to admit defeat. The loudspeaker crackled overhead. Final boarding call for Flight 207 to Denver. Passengers, please proceed to Gate 14 immediately. A couple hurried past me, laughing. A child clutched her mother's hand, dragging a stuffed rabbit behind her. A lump lodged in my throat. Then another buzz. Lilith! You'll be fine, Kala. You always figure things out. A single tear slid down my cheek. They weren't coming back. My hands trembled as I checked my wallet. $23.50. An expired student ID. A receipt from some gas station. I opened my suitcase. A few clothes. No toothbrush. No charger. Panic clawed at my chest. I was alone. I spent that first night in a corner of the terminal, curled up in a plastic chair, watching flights I would never be on blink across the departure screens. By morning, the airport had grown unfamiliar. Cold, sterile. A place that didn't belong to me. The coffee shop cashier eyed me suspiciously when I counted out crumpled bills for the cheapest thing on the menu. I walked until my feet ached, until the automatic doors whooshed open and I stepped into the Texas heat. The city stretched before me, loud, fast, indifferent. I had nowhere to go. A year passed. I learned to survive. I found work at a diner, a greasy spoon on the edge of town, the kind of place where the coffee was burnt, and the jukebox only played half the songs. I scrubbed dishes. I bussed tables. I worked until my fingers ached, then did it all over again the next day. I slept in a room above a laundromat, where the walls were thin, and the air smelled like detergent and mold. I kept my head down. Marlo, the owner, didn't ask questions. She watched me, sharp-eyed but silent, like she could see the cracks in me but knew better than to pry. And maybe, for the first time, I was free. No one controlled me. No one dictated my future. But survival had a cost. I had no safety net, no family, no one to call if things went wrong. And they did go wrong. It was a slow night. I was wiping down a table when the door opened, and a voice I hadn't heard in over a year slithered through the diner. Well, well. So this is where you ended up. I froze. Cormac Whitmore stood in the doorway. The same tailored suit, the same cold eyes scanning the room, taking it all in with thinly veiled disgust. The diner fell silent. The cook behind the counter stopped mid-motion, spatula hovering over the griddle. The couple in the booth by the window turned to watch. Cormac took a slow step forward. This is what happens when you think you can survive without family, Kala. You were supposed to be better than this. I swallowed hard, my fingers tightening around the rag in my hand. What do you want? He scoffed, voice loud enough for everyone to hear. I told you, you were never going to be more than a waitress scraping by. Guess I was right. Heat rushed to my face. He was enjoying this. He wanted me humiliated, small, just like before. But I wasn't the same girl they left behind. You done? Marlowe's voice cut through the tension like a knife. She stood by the counter, arms crossed, unimpressed. Or should I get someone to escort you out? Cormac let out a low laugh, shaking his head. I don't need to waste another second here. He turned and walked out. Didn't even look back. I should have felt relief. Instead, I gripped the counter so tightly my knuckles went white. Anger burned beneath my skin. No more running, no more pretending. I would prove them wrong. But proving them wrong meant facing something I never wanted to see again. My past. It had been 5 years since I'd been left behind. 5 years of scraping by, building something out of nothing, convincing myself that I was untouchable. I wasn't. I had my own tiny apartment now, a single-room space above a laundromat that smelled like detergent and desperation. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I worked long shifts at the diner, saved every penny, and ignored the ghosts of my past. Until the past came knocking. The phone rang early that morning. Ms. Whitmore, we need to discuss the outstanding loan under your name. I frowned. Loan? I don't have a loan. A pause. Ms. Whitmore, there's a $15,000 loan in your name, opened last year. Everything in me went still. That's not possible, I said, my voice sharper now. Send me the paperwork. Minutes later, the email came through. My fingers trembled as I opened the attachment. And then my stomach dropped. There it was. A loan document. My name, my supposed signature, and a cosigner, Ronan Whitmore. I gripped my phone so tightly I thought it might crack. My own brother had stolen my identity. He had taken out a loan in my name, let the debt pile up, and never once thought to warn me. My phone buzzed again. A text. From him. Guess you found out. No big deal. Just fix it. A slow, simmering rage spread through me. I had spent 5 years cutting them out. 5 years proving I didn't need them. And they still found a way to use me. I didn't call Ronan. He wasn't worth it. I called her instead. The phone barely rang once before she answered. Oh, Kala, sweetheart. It's been so long. My throat tightened. That voice, honeyed, soft, like she had been waiting to hear from me. Like she hadn't erased me from her life. I forced steel into my tone. Did you know? A pause. Know what, darling? About the loan. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, in a voice just barely above a whisper, she admitted, Yes. I closed my eyes. She kept talking, rushing the words now. But you have to understand, Kala. Ronan was in trouble. He needed help. I laughed, a short, bitter sound. He needed help. My voice shook. So you let him steal from me? Lilith sighed, the sound of a woman exhausted by her own choices. We thought you'd be okay, Kala. You've always been so independent, so strong. Ronan just what? I snapped. Needed someone to clean up his mess, and you let him use me? Tears filled her voice now. I didn't know what else to do. You could have chosen me, I said quietly. Just once. Silence. I didn't wait for an excuse. I hung up. The betrayal was worse than the night they abandoned me. That night, at least, they had let me go. Now, I realized, they had never let me go at all. I sat in my dimly lit apartment, the loan document crumpled in my hands. I could fix it. I could pay it off, take the hit, just like always. Or I could fight back. A cold, hard certainty settled in my bones. They didn't get to use me anymore. I grabbed my laptop and started typing. First step? Closing every door they could use to reach me. I locked my credit, froze every account, filed a fraud report. Next step? Finding out just how deep this mess went. I wasn't cleaning up after them. I was burning it all down. If they wanted me to fix their mess, they'd regret ever thinking I would. The deeper I dug, the worse it got. Cutting off my family should have been the end of it. I had taken back control, locked down my finances, and ensured they couldn't steal from me again. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more. More damage, more lies. And if there was one thing I had learned about Ronan, it was that he never stopped at just enough. So, I started searching. I combed through my bank statements, line by line, looking for anything out of place. Most of it was normal: rent payments, groceries, my small savings deposit at the end of each month. But then I checked my credit report, and my stomach dropped. A second account, one I had never opened. It was drained dry. Not just that, there were thousands in cash advances linked to my name over the past 2 years. My heart pounded as I cross-checked the withdrawals. Most of them had been taken out near East Austin, close to an area notorious for illegal gambling. And then I saw the name: Apex Financial Holdings. I opened a new tab and started searching. It took less than 5 minutes to confirm my worst suspicion. Apex wasn't just any financial company. It was a shell business, a front for loan sharks. And it was owned by a man I had only heard whispers about: Dante Morales, a criminal, a man who didn't deal in negotiations. He dealt in consequences. My fingers tightened around my phone as a sick realization settled in my gut. Ronan didn't just steal from me. He had dragged me into something much, much worse. I knew I should stay out of it, let Ronan burn for his mistakes. But if my name was tangled in this mess, I needed to know how deep it went. That's how I ended up outside a warehouse in East Austin at nearly midnight. The place looked abandoned, but I knew better. The street was too quiet, the kind of silence that only came when people knew better than to ask questions. My pulse pounded as I stepped inside. The air was thick with sweat, cigarette smoke, and something else: fear. And then I saw him. Ronan. He looked wrecked, bruises on his cheek, split lip, clothes wrinkled like he had been sleeping in them. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Then I saw him. Dante Morales. He sat at a table, dressed in a perfectly pressed suit, completely at ease. 2 men flanked him, still as statues, their expressions unreadable. He barely glanced at me before smirking. "So you're the sister," he said, his voice smooth. "The one with the clean record." I kept my face blank. "I have nothing to do with this." Dante leaned forward slightly, folding his hands together. "See, that's the thing. Your brother said otherwise." My jaw clenched. I turned to Ronan, who wouldn't meet my eyes. "Calla, please," he muttered. "You can fix this." Fix it, like I had been doing my entire life. Dante slid a document across the table: a debt contract, $50,000, and my name, forged, as a co-signer. I gritted my teeth so hard my jaw ached. Ronan hadn't just dragged me into his mess. He had signed my name into a deal with a criminal. I exhaled slowly, forcing my hands to stay steady. I looked Dante in the eye. "I didn't sign this, and I'm not paying a damn cent." Silence. Then Dante smiled, a slow, knowing smile that sent a chill down my spine. "That's unfortunate," he murmured, "because your brother here—" He nodded to his men. They grabbed Ronan, shoving him forward. He stumbled, barely catching himself before hitting the table. "Is running out of time," Ronan whimpered. I barely recognized the sound. My brother, the same man who had laughed when they left me at that airport, looked at me now like I was his last chance at survival. His fingers wrapped around my wrist. "Calla, please," he whispered. "If I don't pay—" I yanked my arm free. "You did this to yourself." His face twisted in desperation. "I didn't have a choice." "There's always a choice," I snapped. "You just made the wrong one." Dante let out a soft chuckle, like he was watching an interesting show. "Family is funny like that," he mused, "always leaving behind collateral damage." I refused to let him rattle me. I turned on my heel and walked away, my heart hammering. I knew this wasn't over. Dante wouldn't forget my face. And Ronan? Ronan wasn't done using me. I had just declared war against my own brother. And my family? They were about to escalate this fight. I had done everything right. I cut off all contact, blocked Ronan's number, notified my bank of every fraud risk imaginable. I even filed a report, though I knew damn well that people like Dante Morales didn't care about what was legal. I tried to move on, but my family didn't believe in moving on. They only believed in getting what they wanted. So, when my phone rang one evening with an unknown number, I almost ignored it. Almost. I shouldn't have picked up. Calla? A voice I hadn't heard in years. Lilith. She sounded different, weaker, shaky. Please, sweetheart, just meet us for dinner. We need to talk. Every fiber of my being screamed no. But there was something in her voice, real desperation, and for a split second, I felt the pull. One last time. They picked the place on purpose. Some fancy restaurant downtown, a place where people like us didn't belong. The kind of place where everything was white tablecloths and fake politeness, where the rich ate steak while drowning in debt. And sure enough, they were already seated when I walked in. Cormac, composed, cold, looking at me like a business opportunity. Lilith, red-eyed, clutching tissues like an actress mid-performance. And Ronan, silent, ashamed, or pretending to be. I didn't sit down. Whatever you're about to ask, the answer is no. Cormac barely reacted, just folded his hands like he was negotiating a deal. We're not here to fight, Calla. We need your help. I crossed my arms. That's new. Lilith reached for me, her voice soft, pleading. Ronan made mistakes. We all did. But we're family, and family helps each other. The words were so hollow, I almost laughed. Cormac reached into his jacket and slid a document across the table. I didn't pick it up. You should read it, he said smoothly. So I did, and my blood went ice cold. A notarized contract, a legal agreement making me financially responsible for Ronan's debt. $50,000, owed to Dante Morales. I inhaled sharply. Cormac's voice was steady. Sign this, and we'll take care of the rest. Dante will leave you alone. Lilith grabbed my hand. Her fingers were trembling. Please, baby, it's just money. I stared at her, then at Ronan. He hadn't said a word. Finally, he spoke, quiet, hesitant. I'll pay you back, I swear, and that's when I did laugh. A deep, bitter sound that made Cormac's jaw tighten. I leaned forward, looking each of them dead in the eye. You think I'm that stupid? Cormac's smile thinned. It's the right thing to do, Calla. I shook my head, disgust curling in my chest. The right thing would have been not stealing from me. The right thing would have been not abandoning me in an airport and then coming back years later, expecting me to fix your mess. Lilith flinched. Don't say that. I stood up. Enjoy your dinner. Cormac's voice turned sharp, low enough that only I could hear. If you walk away, don't expect us to be there when you need us. I froze for half a second. Then, I turned back, and I smiled. You were never there to begin with. I walked out. They just made their last mistake with me. And Ronan? He wasn't done playing dirty yet. It had been 2 days since the dinner, and I had expected the retaliation to come immediately. But the silence was worse. My family didn't do silence. It meant something was brewing. I tried to focus on work, but the air at the diner felt different. The usual chatter among customers had shifted. Conversations dropped when I passed by. A few people shot me quick glances, then looked away just as fast. Marlo caught my wrist as I cleared a table, her grip firm. You need to see this, Calla. She handed me her phone, and I barely had to glance at the screen before my stomach turned to stone. A post on a local Austin community page. Some people just abandon their family when things get tough. Calla Whitmore. What a heartless, selfish disgrace. I gritted my teeth as I scrolled. Hundreds of shares, hundreds of comments, people I didn't know, dragging my name through the mud. Some called me ungrateful. Some said I should be ashamed. Some even suggested that someone like me didn't deserve to work in a place like this. I didn't have to check the account that posted it. I already knew it was Ronan. He hadn't just come after me. He was trying to ruin me. My grip tightened around the phone as I scrolled, scanning the endless flood of strangers judging me over a story they knew nothing about. This wasn't just a warning. This was a public execution. I stormed out of the diner, barely hearing Marlowe calling my name. My hands shook, but not from fear. From rage. I dialed his number. He picked up immediately, smug. Waiting. "You think this is funny?" I snapped. Ronan sighed dramatically. "I don't know what you're talking about, sis." "Bullshit. Take it down." Now silence. Then laughter. Or what? That voice. The same one I'd heard my entire life. The one that lied, manipulated, stole, and still thought he could get away with it. I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. "You think walking away makes you safe?" Ronan said smoothly. "It doesn't. People remember things, and so do I." It wasn't just a taunt, it was a threat. I forced my voice to stay calm. Controlled. "Try me, Ronan. I dare you." He chuckled. "We'll see about that." And then the line went dead. I didn't panic. I planned. First, I called a lawyer. I need to talk about a defamation case. Then, I locked down everything. Every social media account, every email. I scrubbed any public trace of my past, my job, my life. If he wanted to destroy me, I'd make damn sure there was nothing left to target. I warned Marlowe. "This might not be over," I told her. She just nodded, arms crossed. "You let me know if I need to throw someone out." And then I made a decision. This wasn't just about family anymore. This was war. If Ronan wanted to play dirty, I'd make sure he regretted it. And then, just as I expected, they escalated things again. The smear post had doubled in reach overnight. The comments were relentless. Strangers who didn't know a damn thing about me were tearing me apart online, calling me selfish, ungrateful, a disgrace. And at the diner, the shift in energy was undeniable. People whispered when I passed by. Customers who used to chat now avoided eye contact. Even Marlowe seemed to be watching me differently, like she was waiting to see if I'd break. I wouldn't. But I should have known this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The door swung open with too much force. I didn't have to look up. I already knew. Cormac, Ronan, Lilith. They walked in together, like a perfectly staged scene. Cormac adjusted his expensive suit, eyes scanning the place with the disgust of a man who thought he was better than everyone here. Lilith clutched her purse like the air itself might dirty her. And Ronan? He leaned against the counter with that same smug smirk he had been wearing since we were kids, like he was always one step ahead, always in control. The diner went silent. I felt every set of eyes shift to me. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. They came here for one reason: to humiliate me. Cormac spoke first, his voice loud on purpose. "Calla, we need to talk." I crossed my arms. "We have nothing to talk about." Lilith stepped forward, her voice trembling just enough to sound believable. "Please, Calla, we just want to understand why you're doing this to us." My stomach twisted. That tone, that same fake pleading voice she had always used to make me doubt myself. People started whispering. I could feel them forming their own opinions, deciding whether I was the villain or the victim. Ronan shook his head, laughing under his breath. "You really have no shame, do you?" His voice dripped with disappointment, like he was the one who had been wronged. "After everything we did for you?" I clenched my fists so hard my nails dug into my palms. Cormac tilted his head, assessing me. "You think you're better than us now?" His voice was smooth, patient. "This little diner job, this life you're trying to build, it's pathetic, Calla." Something snapped inside me. I took a step forward. My voice was sharp, cutting. "You don't get to come in here and act like you're the victims." The diner was dead silent. I took another step. "You abandoned me." Another. "You stole from me." My voice rose, cutting through the room. "And now, When I finally cut you off, you come crawling back. Why? Because you need something? Cormac's expression darkened. Watch your tone, Calla. I laughed, cold, humorless. Or what? You'll leave me stranded again? Ronan scoffed, shaking his head. You really think you can just walk away from us? I met his eyes. I already did. Lilith started crying. We're your family. My voice was ice cold. Number you were just the people who raised me. Marlowe stepped in then, her voice calm but firm. You heard her! Get the hell out! Cormac held my gaze for a long moment. And then, just like that, he turned and walked out. Lilith followed, still clutching her purse like she had just survived something horrific. Ronan was the last to leave. But before he stepped through the door, he turned back, locking eyes with me one last time. He wasn't done, but neither was I. The diner stayed silent for a long moment. Then Marlowe exhaled. You okay? I let out a slow breath. Number, but I will be. I looked around, meeting the gazes of my coworkers, the customers still watching me. Some were sympathetic, some were still judging me. But none of it mattered anymore, because I knew the truth. And now so did everyone else. They wanted to humiliate me. Instead, they showed the world exactly who they really were. And that's when they decided to destroy me for real. I thought the public showdown at the diner had been the climax. The moment they realized I was done, the moment they'd slink back into the shadows, licking their wounds. I was wrong. They came harder. The smear campaign got worse. Ronan doubled down online, spreading lies so outrageous they should have been laughable. But people believed them anyway. Cormac called my workplace. He told Marlowe that I was troubled, a disgrace, that I was stealing from family, and a danger to customers. Lilith left voicemails, sobbing, begging. You don't understand what you're doing, Calla. This is killing us. It's breaking your father's heart. Their desperation reeked of manipulation. But the final straw? Cormac showed up at my apartment. The knock was sharp, demanding. I ignored it. Then his voice came through the door, low and full of venom. You think this is over, Calla? You're nothing without us. My hands clenched into fists. Every instinct told me to stay silent. But I was done hiding. I opened the door. Cormac stood there, smug. Ronan just behind him, arms crossed like a soldier waiting for orders. Lilith clutched her purse, her eyes already red like she was preparing for a performance. Cormac smiled, like he had already won. I didn't let him speak. I pushed past him, stepping onto the sidewalk. Somewhere public, visible. If he wanted a fight, he wasn't going to get it behind closed doors. They followed me. The plaza was busy, people walking, shopping, a few sitting at the cafe across the street. Perfect. Cormac's voice cut through the air, sharp and polished, like a weapon he'd wielded his whole life. You owe us, Calla. We gave you life, and this is how you repay us? People turned to watch. Lilith sniffled, her voice wounded. We just want our daughter back. Ronan sneered, shaking his head. You think you're special? You're still the same scared little girl we left at that airport. I sucked in a slow breath. Calm, controlled, deadly. Then I stepped forward. You don't own me anymore. Cormac's eyes flashed. You were a mistake. The air went still. For a moment, no one moved. I saw real hate in his face. Not just anger, not just frustration, pure, seething resentment. And I realized something. He had never wanted me to survive without them. They needed me to fail, because if I could succeed without them, then their power meant nothing. I reached into my bag. I pulled out a check, and I handed it to him. $73.50, the exact cost of a one-way bus ticket back home. That's what it would have cost me to go back, if I ever wanted to. Cormac's face turned red. He snatched the check, ripped it in half, and let the pieces flutter to the ground. His voice shook with rage. You ungrateful little... Security appeared. 2 uniformed guards. Is there a problem here? Cormac stepped back, barely containing his fury. Ronan spat at the ground, then turned and walked away. Lilith gave me one last tearful look before following them. I didn't watch them go. I already knew. They had nothing left to take from me. That night, my phone rang. Marlo. You okay? I hesitated, then nodded to myself. Yeah. I think I am. The past doesn't disappear overnight. But for the first time, I was no longer chained to it. They wanted me to be nothing without them. But I was finally free. And now, for the first time in my life, I could finally decide who I wanted to be. It had been a week since I severed the last rotting thread that tied me to my family. A week of silence. No manipulative texts, no guilt-tripping calls. Just silence. And at first, it felt like victory. But victory didn't feel like I thought it would. The quiet was too loud. I had spent my whole life fighting, bracing for the next hit, waiting for the next demand, the next cruel word disguised as love. And now, there was nothing, no enemy, no war, just me. And I didn't know what to do with that. The knock on my door was soft, hesitant. I almost didn't answer. But when I opened it, Ezra stood there, a bag of takeout in his hands. No dramatic speeches, no questions, just understanding. I stepped aside to let him in, and we sat on the couch, eating quietly. For the first time in days, I wasn't alone. Ezra broke the silence first. You don't have to pretend you're okay with this, he said, voice low. I exhaled, setting down my chopsticks. I know, but I also know this was the right thing to do. He nodded, squeezing my hand. And for the first time, I didn't flinch at someone reaching out. The next morning, I walked into Marlo's diner, my second home. Marlo stood behind the counter, arms crossed, shaking her head. Took you long enough? I blinked. What? She gestured around. You've been walking around like a damn ghost for the past week. I was wondering when you'd finally snap out of it. A small laugh slipped out. So? You're saying I should stop sulking? Marlo smirked. I'm saying you're wasting time. Life's waiting for you, kid. And just like that, something shifted inside me. My past didn't define me. I had people who actually cared about me. For the first time, I truly believed it. Later that day, Marlo slid a small envelope across the counter. I frowned, opening it. Inside was a set of keys. I looked up, confused. What's this? Marlo leaned against the counter, casual as ever. A fresh start. A space of your own. If you're ready. I looked down at the keys, my heart hammering. It wasn't just a gift. It was a lease, a restaurant lease. Marlo was giving me a shot to open my own place. No strings attached. I gripped the keys tightly, emotion swelling in my chest. I don't know what to say. Marlo shrugged. Then don't say anything. Just do something with it. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just about a restaurant. This was about finally building something that was mine. For the first time, my future was in my own hands, and I wasn't about to waste it. Months had passed since I held those keys in my hands, uncertain and terrified. Since I stepped into the empty space that would become mine. Now I stood in the middle of my restaurant. My restaurant. It wasn't perfect. The floors had scuff marks that wouldn't buff out. The chairs were mismatched because I could only afford secondhand, and the kitchen still had a few quirks that drove me insane. But it was alive. The air buzzed with laughter, with the clinking of plates, the hum of conversations. Every table was full. People came back. Not because they owed me anything, not because they needed something from me, but because they wanted to. Marlo sat at the counter, arms crossed, a knowing smirk on her face. Told you, she said simply. I rolled my eyes. Told me what? That you'd pull this off. Ezra walked in, sleeves rolled up, tying a borrowed apron around his waist. And that you'd make it look easy, I scoffed. If by easy, you mean working 17-hour days on my feet, sure. Ezra just grinned and grabbed a tray of drinks. I wiped my hands on my apron and took a slow, steady breath. This was it. This was what I had fought for. This was mine. Long after the last customer left, I sat alone in the quiet. For the first time in months, I did something I had promised myself I wouldn't. I checked social media. I never unfollowed them. I told myself it was out of indifference, but I knew better. I scrolled. Ronan was still a mess. He had moved on to new scams, still conning people, still making excuses. But people were catching on. The comments under his posts were full of accusations, people calling him out. No one was falling for it anymore. Cormac's world had crumbled. The hardware store had gone under. His posts were bitter, filled with legal battles over unpaid debts. Once, people in town respected him. Now, they ignored him. No one cared. Lilith still played the devoted mother. Her page was full of nostalgic posts. Missing my family today. Hold your loved ones close. There were old pictures, holidays, smiling faces, but never any of me. That was when I finally understood. They had spent so long trying to pull me back, but not because they loved me, because they needed me. And now that I was useless to them, they had erased me completely. For the first time, it didn't hurt. I closed the laptop. I wouldn't check again. The past wasn't my concern anymore. I walked to the front of the restaurant, where Ezra stood with a dish towel slung over his shoulder, watching me. You coming to bed? I looked around one last time. This wasn't just a restaurant, it was proof. Proof that I survived. Proof that I won. I smiled. Yeah, I'm done here. They spent their whole lives trying to break me. But in the end, I built something better than they ever could. Before we wrap up this story, I want to leave you with something to think about. Life doesn't hand you a perfect beginning. Some of us are born into broken families, into situations where love is conditional, where survival means navigating manipulation, betrayal, and pain. But here's what I've learned. You are not bound by the people who try to break you. There will always be those who think they own you, whether it's family, society, or your past mistakes. They will try to convince you that without them, you are nothing. But that's a lie. The truth is, you get to decide who you become. Success is not revenge, it's freedom. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is walk away and build something better. So I want to ask you, have you ever had to walk away from someone who was holding you back? Was it family, a toxic friend, a job that drained you? What gave you the strength to finally say, I deserve better? Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if this story resonated with you, if it made you feel something, hit that like button and type 1 in the comments. Let me know where you're watching from. I want to connect with you. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next story. Because sometimes the best way to move forward is to know you're not alone. See you in the next one.
My name is Charles. I'm just an average office worker in my 30s, toiling away in the daily grind of commuting between home and work. Aging and getting tired seems inevitable, but one of the main causes of my fatigue is the influence of my boss, Mrs. Wilson. Mrs. Wilson is competent, beautiful, and looks like a model. On top of that, she is an elite who's been promoted early due to her excellent performance. She's so perfect that people often joke that God must have mistakenly packed all the talent into one person when he created her. However, for some reason, she's tough on me. Charles, there was another error in your paperwork. I'm sorry. I'm not looking for an apology. I want to know why you made a mistake. Listen carefully to what people say. Because I often make mistakes, I frequently get scolded by Mrs. Wilson like this. That kind of thing puts extra pressure on me to avoid making mistakes, and as a result, I'm exhausted. It's always so relaxing here. I say, taking a seat on a bench in a park. The park is close to my office, but there are not many people because there are homeless people. That's why I often take breaks here. It's my hidden retreat. Well, let's see how much I can get done today. After finishing my sandwich quickly, I took out some yarn from my bag. People might say it's feminine, but I've always enjoyed crafting. That's why I'm silently knitting here as a way to relieve stress. There's another reason I choose to knit here. Back again today, Charles. Hello, Joe. When I'm knitting, an old homeless man comes to sit next to me. This man is Joe. He's a friendly guy and a good conversation partner for me. People tend to shun him because he's homeless, but Joe doesn't mock me for knitting or call me feminine. He always listens to my stories. I started talking with Joe a few months ago. At that time, I was dumped by my girlfriend. I wanted to marry her. We had been together for 3 years. But one day, she suddenly disappeared, calling me effeminate and disgusting. She had moved out and left me, which made me so desperate. Even though we dated for 3 years, the way she treated me was unbelievable. The woolen hat I knitted for her, I couldn't give it to her. Honestly, I thought about throwing it away. That's when Joe started talking to me. Are you really going to throw that away? Yeah, but would you like to use it? I planned to give it to my girlfriend, but I don't need it anymore. I must have had a devastated look on my face at that time. Joe listened to me compassionately. This encounter became the starting point, and Joe and I began to chat frequently in this park. He still treasures the hat I gave him at that time. He's a truly kind person. You seem even more passionate today. Yeah, you know what? I made a mistake again today. During the brief lunch break, talking to this old homeless man is my way of relaxing. Joe listens to my stories with interest, and I enjoy our time. But the fun time always ends quickly. Well, I'll be back. Don't make a mistake next time. As I packed up my knitting and handed Joe some snacks I bought for him, I left the place. A few weeks later, I was assigned to go on an outside job with Mrs. Wilson. Mrs. Wilson is very efficient at her work and very popular with our clients. Honestly, I wonder if I'm really needed, but it seems like the reason is the luggage is heavy, so she needs my help. I can't help it because my sales skills are lacking, but I was knitting in the park today, hoping that she would rely on me a bit more. Hello, Charles. Hello, Joe. Sorry, I might not be able to stay long today. I have an outside job after lunch. That must be tough, I said to him in a relaxed tone. When I talk to him, I feel tension leave my shoulders, and I can relax. He may have once had a job where he had to talk to people. As I was thinking that, my phone rang suddenly. It was Mrs. Wilson. Charles, where are you right now? I'm at Cozy Park. That's perfect. I just decided to use my car for today's field job, so I'll pick you up. After Mrs. Wilson said that, I checked my watch. Indeed, lunch break was almost over. The timing was perfect. I was called by my boss, so I'll leave soon. Is it the scary boss you were talking about? Don't say that in front of her. I saw Mrs. Wilson's car stop at the entrance of the park. I'm sorry, Mrs. Wilson, for picking me up. It's on the way, so it doesn't matter. I didn't know there was a park here. Mrs. Wilson stared at me in the park and froze. To be precise, she was looking at Joe, who was behind me. Dad? Mrs. Wilson ran up to Joe and hugged him. I've been looking for you. I was so worried. Charles, who is this beautiful person? Huh. Looking at the clueless Joe, Mrs. Wilson was frozen. I told Mrs. Wilson that he has amnesia. Knowing that fact, Mrs. Wilson seemed to be shocked. No way. Dad, did you forget about me? Are you sure you're not mistaken? I can't believe I have such a beautiful daughter. You're not mistaken because those gloves, they were made by Mom. Saying that, Mrs. Wilson was teary-eyed. Come to think of it, Joe always wore those ragged gloves, even though they were worn out with holes and missing fingers. It was something he had worn since he came here. He seemed to cherish them. Mrs. Wilson asked Joe several times, but Joe just tilted his head. It wasn't getting anywhere like this, so I decided to leave the park with Mrs. Wilson for now. It was time for work after all. During the field job, we were silent all the way. Mrs. Wilson, who never put personal feelings into her work, is strict but handled things professionally until the work was over. But as soon as the field job ended and we arrived at the park lot, she burst into tears, perhaps unable to hold it in any longer. All alone, she muttered, "Sly, Dad, was it so traumatic that you forgot?" She looked so pitiful. "Mrs. Wilson, if you're okay with it, I'll listen to you." I said this more as a consolation, but it seemed Mrs. Wilson had wanted someone to listen, and she slowly began to talk about Joe. No, about her father, Mr. John Wilson. The Wilson family was a bit wealthier than the average family. Mr. John was a school teacher, and his wife was a nurse. However, when Mrs. Wilson was just starting her career, her mother passed away suddenly. She was involved in a traffic accident. It seemed Dad loved Mom so much. After she passed away, he quit his job and secluded himself all the time. At the time, Mrs. Wilson, who had already moved out of the house, would check on her father in between work. But as it got busy, she couldn't go home often and couldn't get through on the phone. When a worried Mrs. Wilson finally returned home after a long while, Mr. John was gone. I filed a missing persons report, but he couldn't be found. If I had been by his side, this wouldn't have happened. It seemed like Mrs. Wilson had been blaming herself for her father's disappearance until now, and she cried sorrowfully. Seeing that also hurt me, and I wanted to bring Joe home. But Joe didn't react very well to Mrs. Wilson, and even if I took him home in his current condition, he would likely return to the park. Including getting him examined at a hospital, the hurdles are quite high. "Dad, if we return home, will he remember something? Even if he doesn't remember, at least I want to take him to the hospital," Mrs. Wilson said as a daughter worrying about her father. I thought, and then came up with a good idea. "Hey, Mrs. Wilson, let's knit. I mean, Mr. John is a really kind person. The reason I first became friends with him is because he spoke to me when he saw me knitting. He also cherished his gloves, so if you give him a gift, he might be interested and listen to you. Joe always seemed to have an interest in knitting." Mrs. Wilson also said optimistically, "My mom used to knit a lot. He might vaguely remember that." However, she looked down a bit. "I've never knitted before." "It's okay, I'll teach you," I said. "Charles, thank you. I'm sorry you had to see me like this." Mrs. Wilson smiled weakly. She seemed a little worried, but it seemed like she wanted to do something for her father. Looking straight at me, she asked, "Could you teach me how to knit again?" "Yes, of course," I replied. And so, I found myself teaching Mrs. Wilson to knit. However, there are only a few places where Mrs. Wilson and I can practice together. We can't go to her house, so we decided to knit in the car. Could you take that thread like this?" I instructed. "Yes, now put it through that loop." "Oh, it's not going in well. Should I push it further in?" "Well, no. Don't pull the yarn like that." But things weren't going smoothly. I think we had this kind of conversation about 5 times. Mrs. Wilson is very capable at work, but it turns out she's actually incredibly clumsy. When the idea of knitting came up, it made sense that she might look down. I honestly thought it would be a long haul, but that's our relief. Mrs. Wilson apparently practiced at home, and before we knew it, she was getting the hang of it. She was using the most basic stitch, and it was pretty rough, but still, she kept at it for several months. Somehow, Mrs. Wilson finished knitting a scarf. Finally, let's go deliver it. But what if he doesn't accept it? He's not that kind of person. Come on, I wanted to show Joe the scarf that Mrs. Wilson worked so hard to make. So, I took her hand and headed to the park. I used to come to the park quite often, but this was Mrs. Wilson's first time since that day. When Joe saw us, he said in his usual calm voice, "Oh, isn't it, Charles? You're not alone today." "Go ahead, Mrs. Wilson," I said with a bit of nervousness. Mrs. Wilson looked straight at Joe and offered him the scarf. "Dad, it honestly makes me so sad that you've forgotten me, but I was so relieved to know you're alive. I won't even ask you to come back home, but I don't want you to catch a cold. I made this in the same color as the scarf my mom used to wear often. It's not as good as hers, but I'd like you to accept it." While telling her heartfelt feelings as a daughter, Mrs. Wilson gave the scarf towards him with a smile. Mrs. Wilson's mother was good at knitting, and this time Mrs. Wilson had made a scarf with a design similar to the one her mother often wore while she was alive. It was filled with memories. Wilson hoped that it might jog his memory of it. Joe accepted the scarf and said, "It's warm. I wonder why I feel so warm here, just looking at your smile. Ha, I wonder why I'm in tears." Joe said that as he wrapped the scarf around his neck, touching his chest and shedding a single tear. I wasn't expecting his memory to miraculously return just because of a scarf, but it seemed to have kind of triggered it. After that, he started going to the hospital with Mrs. Wilson, my boss. We're not sure if his memory will ever fully return, but it's said to promote Joe's health and social recovery. He didn't want to be hospitalized, but recently Joe has stopped going to the park and has started returning to Wilson's family home. Perhaps because of this positive progress, Joe has started to occasionally remember his own name, which made both Wilson and me happy. By the way, he still has the scarf I gave him, and he wears it alternately every day. Thank you, Charles. It's all thanks to you. And so, I returned to my usual routine of knitting in the park. On that day, Wilson came and sat next to me. Wilson stands out in a good way at the office, so I appreciate being able to talk with her in the park. I'm grateful. But ever since that knitting, Wilson has been acting much more casual with me. I guess we've gotten close, but to me, Wilson is too attractive, and it makes my heart race. What am I doing at my age? I feel so pathetic. You're the one who put all the effort into knitting, Mrs. Wilson. I didn't really do much. Teaching me to knit wasn't a big deal to you. Well, aha. I said, giving her a smile as I stuffed my mouth with a sandwich. Through our interactions, I've come to understand that Wilson tends to be stern with those she has high expectations of. At work, she had high expectations of me too, which is why she apologized for being so strict. So, Charles, would you like to have dinner with me sometime to thank you? Also, really. I was taken aback by her unexpected suggestion, but Wilson laughed and said, "Of course, or you don't want to have dinner with me. I'll go." I would be honored. I jumped at the chance, which made Wilson laugh again. "You're honest. Can we exchange our contact?" "Yes, I just realized I don't know your contact, Mrs. Wilson." "Call me Sophia. Register me as that, Charles." "Harrison?" "What?" I froze at hearing my full name, but Wilson just input my contact and then casually said, "I'll contact you later," and left. Wilson knew my full name all along. It makes me happy, and I can't help but grin. I'll try my best to earn her trust enough for her to call me by my name. While making such a determination, I start knitting a scarf woven in shades of blue and white. I hope to finish it before the dinner with Sophia, and then I will tell her what I feel. I love you. Will you be my girlfriend? I knew it. You took forever to say it. When I finally gathered the courage to confess my feelings over dinner, she happily said yes. So I wondered if I had been such an open book, but if she got the message, that's all that matters. So we officially became a couple, progressing steadily in our relationship, and eventually we decided to get married. By the way, we haven't had our wedding ceremony yet. Actually, when I proposed to her after a year of dating, I asked Sophia when the marriage registration was supposed to be done. I was thinking we should do it on a special date, but Sophia seemed to have different plans. You realize I'm over 30, right? Yeah, I know. Don't keep a woman waiting forever. I want to get married right away. Otherwise, I'm afraid someone else might snatch you away from me. What a cute thing to say. So we submitted the marriage registration before the ceremony. Now, although Sophia and I are married, I'm still doing my knitting at the same park. I want to wear a stole you made at our wedding. When you hear something like that, it motivates you, doesn't it? Plus, Joe is planning to come to the wedding. He hasn't remembered everything yet, but he's slowly recalling bits and pieces of his past. I thought our wedding might serve as some kind of trigger, but he seemed unsure, asking, "Am I even supposed to be there?" with an anxious look on his face. So Joe worries. I'm planning to gift him something I've knitted too. According to him, the things we've knitted have been like good luck charms to him and have been really reassuring. What color should I go for? Imagining my future bride, I pick up my yarn again today. My name is William. I'm a salesman at a company that's deeply rooted in the local community. I'll be turning 28 this year, but I didn't grow up here. Right after high school, I left my hometown and headed straight to this city. I'm incredibly grateful to my boss for hiring a high school graduate like me and helping me grow into the person I am today. Back in the day, I had quite the reputation as a troublemaker in my hometown. I was a wild child, into motorcycles, and pretty good in a fight because I hated losing. My antics caused plenty of headaches for my parents and teachers. But now I'm reformed and a respectable member of society. I don't visit my hometown often, but when I do reach out, I can tell my parents are relieved. I've even started sending them a little money now and then. One day, after returning from a client's place, I got a call from my boss. He had been waiting for me. When I arrived at his office, the white-haired man greeted me with a smile. I apologized for keeping him waiting, but he waved it off. This boss of mine is a good guy, well known in town for his community involvement. He took me under his wing like I was his own son. He motioned for me to sit on the guest sofa and then said, "Sorry for the suddenness, but Robert, what do you think about matchmaking?" I was caught off guard. My social life lacks a feminine touch, but it's not like I can't attract women. I just haven't felt like dating because I'm still getting my life back on track. But this wasn't just about dating, it was about marriage. And coming from my boss, my benefactor, I felt anxious. He continued, "She's the daughter of the owner of Harris Enterprises. You've seen her at Chamber of Commerce parties, right?" I had seen her before. She was well known, not for her looks, but for never smiling. People called her a cool beauty, but she had zero sociability. Her beautiful eyes and well-proportioned face stood out even at those parties. The boss said the president of Harris Enterprises wanted to introduce her to a good young man, and my face came to mind. He handed me her marriage interview photo with a smile. The girl in the photo was definitely pretty but seemed unsociable. I have my own ideals. A cute, homely girl who eats well. This girl looked like she might be eating mist or something. I tried to decline politely, but the boss wasn't having it. "Are you saying my eyes are clouded? There's no one more suitable than you," he insisted. In the end, I agreed to the marriage interview, feeling a pit in my stomach. The date was set, and the boss even gave me money for a new suit. I reluctantly bought one, not wanting to ruin his reputation. On the day of the interview, I entered a high-class restaurant in my brand new suit, feeling a sharp pain in my stomach. I hadn't told my parents about the marriage interview because I planned to decline. Somehow, the boss was sitting with me as a substitute for my parents. After a while of sitting, the landlady of the restaurant showed up, and with the announcement, "Your party has arrived," the face of Harris Enterprises' boss appeared. Behind the president, his daughter in a formal dress followed. Seeing her up close, she had skin like porcelain and a beauty that was somehow out of this world. I was taken aback. "Sorry to keep you waiting. This is my daughter. Her name is Nora." President Harris introduced her. She slightly retracted her chin and nodded to me. Of course, there was no smile on her face. Rather, I was startled by the sharpness of her gaze when she quietly looked at me. In the end, the marriage interview was just the bosses talking while we focused on eating. It was a very uncomfortable space. The meal was finally over with the dessert, and the two bosses left the table together, saying, Now it's up to the young people. It's a common sight at marriage interviews. As soon as the two of them left, the girl who had been silent until now opened her mouth. Do you want to get married? Her sudden aggressiveness made me momentarily angry. Ugh, who talks like that? Always take the fight if it's offered to you. That's how I've lived thus far. If someone was spoiling for a fight, I wouldn't back down either. Her icy gaze stabbed at me, clearly pissed off at my attitude. The marriage interview was your parents' idea, wasn't it? You could have put it more tactfully. You have been staying silent throughout the meeting. Are you trying to embarrass my boss? Think about it. Once I start talking, it's hard to stop. I expressed my distaste for her attitude. Acting high and mighty, who do you think you are living a life that gives you the right to lecture others? We both seem to have confrontational personalities. After a huge argument that caused the landlady to intervene, the marriage interview ended. I figured she would be the one to reject me. Even so, she was a strong-willed president's daughter. I went back to my apartment and thought about her. I was mad, but there was a part of me that couldn't hate her, leaving me feeling unsettled. Days passed since the marriage interview, and I hadn't received any rejection. Instead, I was called into the boss's office during my lunch break to be told that there was a date invitation from her. I was genuinely shocked and taken aback. After such a huge fight, her not rejecting me was surprising. It could be some kind of prank. I left the boss's office feeling like I'd been had. In my hand was a note with a date and time of the next meeting. I needed a drink to deal with this. As soon as I got back to the office, I asked a colleague to join me for drinks that night. That evening, after getting the news about the date from the boss, I went out drinking with my colleagues at a bar. The story of the marriage interview had apparently become office gossip, and my colleagues seemed genuinely interested. I amusingly shared with them how I had a major fight with the president's daughter at the marriage interview. My colleagues jokingly warned me, "You're going to get fired," and I felt a chill thinking it might not be that far-fetched. To shake off that anxiety, I got seriously drunk, which was something I hadn't done in a long time. A junior female colleague was doing her best to support my drunken self as we staggered towards the subway station. I spotted Nora Harris in the crowd. Our eyes locked instantly. Then, expressionlessly, she flashed me the middle finger. In response to her blatant provocation, my drunken head heated up. I was pulled along by my junior female colleague as I wobbled. Even as I was being led, I couldn't take my eyes off Nora. Noticing my gaze, Nora nonchalantly lifted her skirt to flash her pure white panties at me. I was captivated by their whiteness. Just as I heard, "Watch out, you're going to hurt yourself," I crashed into a corner wall. I saw stars as I banged my head on the wall. Ouch. I crumpled over, clutching my throbbing head that I had hit hard. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Nora grinning wickedly. What the hell? I couldn't help but grumble to myself. She could smile after all. However, strangely, I didn't feel angry. I found myself starting to enjoy Nora's audacious personality. The date that I was dreading somehow became something I was looking forward to. On the day of our date, I still had a bandage plastered on my forehead. Despite this, Nora's expression didn't change at all. As soon as we sat down side by side on a park bench, Nora repeated the words she had said during our initial meeting. "Do you actually want to get married?" Hearing the same phrase again, I felt there was a catch to this matchmaking. I thought that she might have a compelling reason to get married. If there's a reason I can help, would you mind sharing it with me honestly? She looked at me, eyes wide with surprise. From my serious expression, she understood I wasn't joking. After a deep breath, she began to speak. This marriage interview, it seems, was something she had requested from her father. Apparently, she wanted to prove herself to him. She had been in a long-term relationship with her first love, but had been betrayed by him and her best friend. Betrayed by her boyfriend and her best friend, the deeply wounded Nora wanted to get married to show them up. She wanted to show them that she didn't need them. That was the reason why she was rushing into this matchmaking. Her story left me a bit flabbergasted, but I also felt sympathy for her. Being betrayed by people she trusted and being left alone suddenly is hard. I am a daughter of a president, so it would be like you're marrying up, right? I'll also treat your parents well. If you want, we can even divorce when it suits you. Her face was dead serious as she desperately tried to persuade me. I guess she's this desperate because she still can't forget her first love. Suddenly, I found myself feeling a strange affection for her. So much for her cool beauty persona. Isn't she just a girl who can't forget her first love? I wouldn't mind going out of my way for her. After hearing her whole story, I found myself thinking like that. All right, I'll do it. Let's get married. At my response, her face lit up. Thank you, she said. A faint smile played on her lips as she held back her tears. The disbalance in her expression was so beautiful that I found myself at a loss for words. It just hit me how sudden moments that capture your heart can be. The talk of marriage moved ahead swiftly. After all, Nora wanted to get married as soon as possible. When I reported my plans to marry to the boss, he was happier than when his own son got married. I want to pay a visit to your parents, she said when I was about to start looking for a wedding venue. Nora said so with a serious face. I hadn't been back to my hometown or my parents' house in a long time. For me, my hometown was a place I had essentially abandoned. Only embarrassing memories remained. I was a little afraid to take her back to such a place. I didn't want to deliberately show her parts of myself that I disliked. But she said it's a necessary step and wouldn't take no for an answer. In a way, she almost forcefully decided on my return home. When we actually got there, I was surprised to find everything looking so familiar. The family home I so disliked returning to now felt incredibly nostalgic. Seeing my parents again after a long time, they had aged more than I imagined and looked noticeably smaller. My mom teared up at the sight of me, and when I introduced Nora as my future wife, she sobbed. She was overwhelmed with joy. My silent dad also seemed happy about my return, albeit in his own quiet way. After the greeting with my parents, I took her to something she had insisted on seeing during our visit. I led her behind the family's barn. There, her eyes lit up, and she exclaimed, "This is amazing." My motorcycle was just left out there next to the barn. Surprisingly, she loves motorcycles and has a license for large ones. She'd heard about me riding a motorcycle in my student days and had asked to see it. It's not a big one, but it's a bike I cherish. She stared at it for a while and then said, "Thank you." After that, I decided to show Nora around the neighborhood. "So this is where you grew up," she said, looking down on the river from the embankment with deep emotion. Compared to the city where she grew up, this must have seemed like a peaceful countryside. Everything might be new to her. After deciding to get married and meeting a few times, Nora's expression gradually softened. She would even flash a small smile at me. If we build a home together, will she smile more? As I thought about creating a warm home, I felt a bit foolish. She's marrying me not because she loves me, I remembered. But I guess it's okay because I'm in love with her. "Hey, is that you, Robert?" A hoarse voice called out to me, probably from too much drink. Turning around, I saw an old friend from my rebellious days, Steve, looking at me with a surprised expression. On either side of Steve Young, punks still in their prime were standing by. It seems Steve couldn't manage to reform himself after all. "Yes, but who are you again?" I replied. The heat in the room instantly surged. I figured he was a mate from my reckless past, but his features had changed so much I couldn't recognize him. The signs of a rough life were etched onto his face. "You think you can just waltz back here after all this time, acting high and mighty like the old days?" He glared and threatened me, but I wasn't scared in the slightest. My only worry was whether my girlfriend, who was with me, would be in any harm. As we locked eyes, Nora peeked her head out between us. "So it's true, you were a badass, she said, starting to laugh, clutching her stomach. Seeing her laugh so freely, both Steve and I were taken aback, losing momentum. Who's this you're with? She's the woman I'm going to marry. I see. Just like that, a peaceful expression fell over Steve's face as he looked at Nora. It seems like your life has been moving on just fine. Hearing that, I remembered clearly who this guy was. The moment I realized, I froze on the spot. He was my ex-girlfriend's brother. I wanted to say something, but the words stuck in my throat, and I couldn't get anything out. While I was frozen in place, he gave Nora a gentle pat on the shoulder and smiled. Be happy with Robert. I had a sister too. She's not in this world anymore, but do it for her sake as well. Leaving those words behind, he started to walk towards his car parked under the Livy. The way he slouched slightly as he walked looked like a testament to the past he was carrying. As I stood there in a daze, Nora took my arm and smiled. Should we go visit your ex-girlfriend and your buddy? At her words, I shuddered. I wondered how she knew. My mind spinning, I left my hometown because of a motorcycle accident. I loved motorcycles since my rebellious days, and in my youthful folly, I thought reckless riding was cool. Back then, my girlfriend was a year younger, and she often rode behind me on my motorcycle. The night of the accident, I was at the police station because of a fight I got into during the day, along with my parents and my school teacher. When she heard I was taken to the station, she panicked. She was riding on the back of my boy's bike to come pick me up from the station when the accident happened. It wasn't because they were riding recklessly. The driver of the compact car that hit their motorcycle was an unlicensed high schooler. He was a kid just like us, up to no good, and apparently he fled the scene without even calling an ambulance. When I was finally released from the police station, I remember being punched out of the blue by her brother at the entrance. When I finally saw her and my buddy in the cold morgue, I couldn't even cry. I was left in a state of utter disbelief, emotionless, unable to do anything but gaze at the two of them. Afterward, as soon as I graduated, I left my hometown. I left everything behind, including my home, to start afresh. To my surprise, Nora seemed to know all about this. My dad would have definitely looked into my potential match, she said with a hint of regret. It made me wonder, knowing all that, why she would agree to this matchmaking. Knowing my past, how did this match even happen? By all accounts, I was a nuisance, wasn't I? Did her father not consider the harm it could do to his daughter? Times change. My dad understands that, and so do I, she retorted, sounding a bit upset. I scratched my head, realizing the depth of Nora's father's understanding. Perhaps being raised by such a parent is what made Nora as compassionate as she is. When I met her and his best friend for the first time, I visited the graves of my ex-girlfriend and best friend. Nora stood next to me, her hands folded in silent prayer. When I asked her what she'd been talking about, she said, I was informing them about our marriage. With a chuckle, I declared that I was taking Robert. With a serious face, Nora walked ahead, leaving me stunned. She turned back and reached out to me. I took her hand. We held hands for the first time. Her hand was slightly sweaty, perhaps from the nervousness. Her face was calm as always. When I gently swung our hands, she looked down and gave a small, shy smile. Her shy smile was endearing. I wished she could open up to me sooner, and so we walked hand in hand down the Sunset Road, lost in thought. 6 months after greeting my parents, we were finally on the eve of our wedding. Nora was still a grad student and surprisingly busier than I was with my job. You're free to do what you want on your last night as a bachelor, you know, Nora told me at the cafe we were meeting at. My coworkers had invited me for drinks, but I wasn't particularly excited about my last bachelor's night. I was a little worried that Nora might get cold feet at the last moment. Nora, unaware of my feelings, seemed slightly upset. I think she feels guilty for pushing me into this marriage. You, how awful, Nora's face fell as she raised her voice. Do you know them? It's my ex, Tom. As I turned to the entrance, I saw a man in a suit and a trendy-looking girl entering the cafe. When the man spotted Nora, a distasteful grin spread across his face. He walked straight over to our table. Long time no see. So you're getting married, huh? He talked as if we were close, but his eyes weren't smiling. He was a good-looking guy, but there was a hint of danger about him. Tomorrow is our wedding. It's a small ceremony for my family only. This is Robert. He's going to be my husband. Nora introduced. I gave a slight bow and muttered a quick hi. The man looked down at me as though I was something disgusting. The girl with him looked anxious. So you're being shipped off to a husband so soon? Is this an arranged marriage or just a move to get back at me? Pathetic, despite his provocative words, her expression remained unchanged. She cast her eyes down, seemingly ignoring the man's harsh words. Even if Nora could shrug it off, I couldn't. I glared at the man from my seat. My attitude seemed to make him falter slightly. I don't know where he comes from, but I'm not about to be bested by some man who's probably never thrown a punch in his life. Are you trying to pick a fight with my wife or with me? I don't back down from a fight, you know. What are you going to do? So what if it's an arranged marriage? Nora is the woman I chose. She's too good for you. When I growled back, Tom's face went pale. Layla, who fell in love with Tom, pulled the man's sleeve and said in a low voice, "Stop it. Really? You're going to marry this uncouth man? Don't expect to be happy." Tom spat out a petty parting shot, then hurried out of the cafe as though he was fleeing. Nora watched him go, her face stunned. Then she turned to look at me intently. I felt strangely uncomfortable under her gaze. Unable to endure Nora's scrutiny, I turned away. Ignoring my discomfort, she placed her hands on my cheeks and turned my face towards her. "Do you love me?" She looked deeply into my eyes and quietly asked the question. Caught off guard, I started to panic. My body temperature rose dramatically. At the same time, an irrational anger welled up in me. What a clueless woman. My words slipped out in embarrassed frustration. She frowned and gave my cheek a firm pinch. Ouch. Ouch. Stop it. I just like you. Okay. I never said you had to like me back. The pinching fingers finally released me, but my moment of relief was short-lived as she swiftly slapped both her hands on my cheeks. Why do I have to endure this? I glared at Nora, my eyes watering from the pain in my cheeks. How clueless can you be, you thick-headed man? Surprised by her sudden confession, I pinched my own cheek. I wanted to make sure I wasn't dreaming. My cheek did hurt, and she was standing in front of me looking angry. She seemed to be on the verge of tears. Making the bride cry the day before the wedding was unforgivable. I'm sorry. I apologize. I realized that I was the clueless one. She had been giving me signals all this time, and I had missed them. Nora stood there, her face pouting. Tomorrow, she would be standing next to me in a pure white wedding dress. I was glad I could confirm her feelings the day before our wedding. We might have our fair share of arguments, but we'd be a happy couple indeed. Nora and I were a perfect match. She's always been shy and reserved, and even after getting married, she's still the same. One day, she mistakenly thought she hung up the video call. By the way, my name is Nathan. I'm a 35-year-old businessman. There's nothing particularly special about me, except that I'm currently in the honeymoon phase of my marriage. I got married 6 months ago. My wife, Kathy, is 10 years younger than me. When we got married, my coworkers teased me a lot. I think it was mostly jealousy. I'm a sales rep for a travel company, and Kathy is a curator for a private art museum. I met her when she came on a work assignment to one of my clients. The first time I saw her, I was taken aback. She looked stunningly beautiful, yet there was something dreamy about her. I thought she was putting on an act, but it was just her being herself. She looks drop-dead gorgeous, but can be a bit of an airhead. Every time I discovered this difference, I fell more in love with Kathy. It took me 2 years of persistent effort to finally win her heart. She turned down my marriage proposal twice, but I never gave up. I think our marriage is a result of my perseverance. Our married life has been peaceful, and every day brings new discoveries with Kathy. My life changed completely after marrying her. Kathy's family is all about the arts. Her mom is a pianist, her dad is a painter, her sister is a traditional American painter, and her brother is a sculptor. In this family, Kathy feels like she doesn't fit in. She told me before we got married that she wasn't naturally gifted and had to work hard. She realized early on that she wasn't talented. From that moment, Kathy chose to work hard. Do you know what it's like to work so hard it makes up for a lack of talent? This was what the usually calm and serene Kathy said to me with a pained look. I've never felt like I had any special talent. Both my parents and siblings are ordinary. I grew up in peace without comparing myself to anyone. But I could see from her face how hard she had worked. I think I fell in love with her no matter what. I told her, hoping to reach her heart. Soon after, she accepted my marriage proposal. Nathan, I'd like to visit my folks for a bit. Is that okay? About 6 months into our marriage, she asked me this over breakfast, and I immediately agreed. It felt like a good time for her to visit home. Of course, it's fine. Go ahead. Don't worry about me, I responded. Kathy smiled and said, "Thank you." Kathy's family home is in Boston. All her family members live there. "I'll call you every day," she said, pointing to the laptop beside her. "Even when I'm on business trips, we always make sure to video call each other every evening." This is the first time Kathy has left our home since we got married. But something suddenly happened. It seems there's some issue back at my family home. Kathy sighed with a look of concern. Perhaps their family has different problems than most. There might be a lot of things that I don't understand, but I want to be by her side as much as I can. There's probably a lot I don't get, but don't keep any secrets, okay? Just talk to me about anything. I gently shook her hand, and she nodded yes and smiled happily. It's been a month since that morning. I had thought she'd be back after just a week. Sure, Kathy calls me every day, but isn't this a bit long? Could it be that she has someone she can't forget about? I've been fighting off such distressing thoughts. Nathan, what's wrong? You don't seem well today. Kathy looked concerned on the computer screen. Even though we're video calling, I must have seemed distant. Sorry, nothing's wrong. Just busy with work. It's becoming a good season for trips. Busy season, you know. I tried to brush it off, yet she still looked worried and reached out her hand. I think she was trying to feel my forehead through the screen to check if I had a fever. Of course, that's impossible, but I couldn't help but adore her for being so earnest in her concern. Her quirks always made me fall for her. Kathy, you can't really check my fever like that. Oh right, silly me, she chuckled, looking a bit embarrassed when I pointed it out. We talk every day through video calls, but she hasn't told me anything about the family issue that caused her to go home. I felt like I shouldn't pry, so I've been waiting for her to open up about it. That day, too, we ended the video call with just small talk. I think it'll take a bit longer. I know you're busy, but please eat properly. Kathy ended the call with a note of concern for my well-being. I smiled and replied, "I'm good," and hung up. I always waited for Kathy to end the video call first. I wanted to see her face for as long as possible. Today, I waited for her to end the call as usual, but she didn't hang up. She seemed to have forgotten to do so. I fumbled for my phone to message her, "You haven't disconnected the video call." On the computer screen, Kathy, unaware she was still connected, started to change. We are a married couple, so there's nothing wrong with that. I kept telling myself that as I saw my reflection on the screen. I did feel a bit guilty about it. We've been apart for such a long time. Surely even God would forgive me for this little indulgence. With that selfish justification, I continued watching. The moment Kathy's blouse slipped off her shoulder, I froze. I had seen her secret. Come to think of it, I think it was the first time I'd seen her skin in the light. I thought we had no secrets between us. What's this on the screen? A beautiful floral tattoo was inked on Kathy's left hand. It seemed unfinished, with only the outline visible. In my shock, I quickly shut the computer. That made me completely speechless. Was Kathy involved with someone dangerous back home? No other explanation made sense. I was haunted by that thought. From that day, our video calls became a painful experience. Considering you're probably busy too, we don't have to talk every day, I suggested. Kathy looked surprised at my words. After a brief moment of sadness, she showed her usual smile. You're right, Nathan. You must be busy too. I'm sorry for not realizing. I won't call every night, she said softly and ended the video call. I felt awful, like I'd done something terrible to her, and spent the night feeling depressed. Our nightly calls stopped abruptly after that day. Kathy returned about a month after our conversation. The day before, she had emailed, "I'll be back tomorrow." I was ecstatic, but equally apprehensive. Facing her and talking was now a daunting thought. I anxiously awaited her return. She came back in the evening. I had taken a day off to welcome her home. "I'm back, Nathan. Why aren't you at work?" Kathy looked surprised to see me home on a weekday evening. Her reaction only fueled my anxieties. "I took a day off. Welcome home. You took a pretty long vacation." I tried to sound welcoming, but my words dripped with unintended sarcasm. She noticed the difference in my demeanor right away. She put down her bags next to the living room couch and sat down, looking up at me intently. "What is it?" I was taken aback by her piercing gaze. She's the one with the secret, so why is she staring at me so defiantly? I wanted to confront her, but the words wouldn't come. Kathy, seeing my hesitation, took the initiative. "Do you have something to say to me, or is there something you want to ask?" Being questioned so directly irritated me. Why do I have to be the one to confront her? Anger bubbled up inside me. It's you who's keeping secrets, isn't it? Why am I the one being confronted? The roles have reversed, haven't they? I snapped back, raising my voice unintentionally. Kathy looked taken aback. Secrets from me? The idea of her playing dumb infuriated me even more. I spilled the beans. I told her that the video call hadn't disconnected and I'd seen everything. Isn't that tattoo on your left hand a secret? You felt guilty, so you hid it from me, right? My voice grew louder without me realizing it. Once I voiced my doubts, there was no stopping me. Kathy's puzzled face only made me angrier. Guilty about what? About this. She rolled up her sleeve to show the tattoo. The once unfinished tattoo was now complete. I don't know all the details, but it was just a beautiful carving. It was a beautiful piece of art that left me staring in awe. For this, where's the guilt in this? I had every intention of telling you. Kathy's eyes, gazing straight into mine, seemed to carry no deceit. Her eyes were proof that she had nothing to hide. Feeling drained, I slumped down on the couch. I've never kept anything from you, Nathan. Her stern face softened to her usual gentle expression. I'm sorry for jumping to conclusions. Kathy, can you explain it to me if you're not too frustrated with me, that is? She may not like me anymore. I felt a pang in my chest thinking she might resent me now. Why would I be frustrated? You're just concerned about me, right? Kathy gave a comforting smile, then she began to explain the origin of the tattoo. She said the reason she had to rush back home was because of her younger brother, Evan. Evan, who originally aspired to be a traditional painter, suddenly announced he wanted to be a tattoo artist. Their parents were against it, leaving Evan feeling isolated within the family. He was sensitive and deeply cared about his family. Kathy went home fearing the pressure might break him. Their strict father, seeing Kathy's side with Evan, lashed out, saying, "You, without a shred of talent. To my father, I'm a disappointment. Even though I carry his blood, I don't have the artistic talent. I'm an embarrassment to him." Kathy chuckled wryly. Now that she mentioned it, I remembered her parents acting distant at our wedding. I had thought that's how artistic families were. As Kathy had guessed, Evan was on the verge of a mental breakdown. To shut my father up, I offered Evan my left arm, Kathy said casually. She gave one arm to her brother as a gift. "Do whatever you want," she had told Evan, to tattoo whatever he wanted. But he had to make it a masterpiece good enough to silence their father. From that day, Evan transformed. He poured his heart and soul into that piece, forgetting even basic necessities like food and sleep. He's always been artistically inclined. Out of all the siblings, he probably has the most talent. Maybe my father was just jealous, Kathy speculated. On the other hand, their eldest brother, a traditional painter, seemed relieved he didn't have to compete with Evan anymore. "Your brother? Why?" I asked. I think he was afraid of Evan's talent, probably scared that Evan would surpass him and let their father down. Kathy's face was serious as she spoke. Her family was probably stricter than I imagined. Just thinking about how she was constantly told she had no talent almost brings me to tears. I believe there's a violence to beauty. I asked Evan to create something brutally beautiful, Kathy continued. Indeed, even to an amateur like me, her tattoo was clearly a work of art. Its mesmerizing beauty could probably captivate even those prejudiced against tattoos. "And your father, did he come around?" At my words, Kathy grinned in a way I'd never seen before, perhaps a look of triumph. He knelt down and admitted defeat after seeing the ink Evan had created. Their father was brought to his knees, probably overwhelmed. He was at a loss for words. His usual arrogance vanished, making him seem small. He probably realized his own narrow-mindedness. Kathy chuckled. Her mood lifted. I felt ashamed for doubting her. "You thought I was cheating on you, didn't you?" Caught off guard, I was lost for words. Seeing my reaction, Kathy seemed to pick up on something. She looked at me with a twinkle in her eyes. I mean, it wasn't, cheating or anything like that. It was just, no matter what the excuse, it was useless. The tables have turned. It hurts to be suspected of cheating. I quit my job and went back home just for Evan. Kathy revealed she had resigned from her job before returning home, as she couldn't get a long leave. She had no idea how long it would take or how long she'd have to stay with her family. "I'm truly sorry." I apologized sincerely. Kathy laughed, looking amused. "Then I'd like you to make it up to me," she said playfully, handing me a bunch of brochures. "I'd love to spend some quality time with you, Nathan. Maybe at a hot spring, enjoying delicious food and taking long baths." The brochures showcased various regions: New England, Midwest, the South, and Alaska. But there was one common theme: bathing. Kathy loved bathing, often spending hours in the tub at home. She was mentally exhausted after dealing with her family's issues and wanted a relaxing getaway. "Got it. Look forward to it," I reassured her. Kathy nodded happily. Then again, she said, "I'm home." "Welcome back, Kathy." I felt as though Kathy had truly come back to me. With this in mind, I welcomed her with a warm welcome back. In the aftermath of this incident, I felt Kathy began showing her true self even more. When I learned she had been trying hard not to upset me, I was taken aback. She had even declined my proposal once, thinking I was teasing her. Now, free from her family's constraints, she seemed brighter than before. Realizing we had both been putting on a facade, trying only to show our best sides, I felt truly grateful for the wake-up call. A few weeks later, we found ourselves at a hot spring. Upon arriving, Kathy, who had been cheerful the entire way, suddenly stopped in her tracks before a sign. "You need to wear swimsuits to take a bath," the sign read loud and clear. Oh, come on. Kathy, a hot bath enthusiast, had especially been looking forward to the open-air bath. She was now utterly disappointed, knowing she was also barred from the indoor communal baths. Had she not realized this when she packed the suitcase? I sometimes wondered if she had some oversights. I did recall thinking something was off when she handed me the hot spring brochure. Perhaps she forgot something. Seeing her now looking so devastated, I had to fight back a chuckle. Well, it can't be helped. It's their rule. After checking in and receiving our room key, we were escorted to our quarters by a staff member. Wanting to make it up to Kathy for everything, I'd splurged a bit. We were led to a detached suite. Throughout the walk, Kathy remained visibly upset. We received the key at the entrance of the suite and entered the room. I tried to cheer her up. "Look, we have our private indoor bath. It'll be fine." She nodded, not really convinced. When we entered the living area and turned on the lights, her face lit up upon seeing the large window. Beyond it lay an open-air bath and a pool. Oh my! She rushed over, flinging the window open. Before us stood a beautiful, rock-crafted open-air bath alongside a small pool. So we get this all to ourselves. Grabbing my hand, Kathy hopped around in excitement. Oh, the swimsuit. Realizing she hadn't packed one again, her face fell once more. But I had come prepared. Handing her a new swimsuit I'd bought for her, she took it from me, already eager to take a dip. I decided to relax and watch her as she dashed off to change. In no time, she emerged in her swimsuit, the captivating tattoo on her left arm blending seamlessly with her skin. "You're not swimming." Kathy, who had just dived into the pool and was now with water up to her head, propped her face on the edge, giving me a sulky look. "No, I'm good. I'll just watch," I responded. She playfully protested with a "really." Right then, an elegant lady, probably close to 70, approached to greet us. She was probably the landlady. The landlady politely greeted me, saying, "Thank you for today." I returned the gesture. Kathy waved from the pool. The older woman squinted a bit, letting out a soft sigh. "Excuse me, is something wrong?" I asked her. She looked a little dreamy as she commented, "You'd shown me something truly beautiful." It took me a moment to realize she was referring to Kathy's tattoo. Now I feel like I should not have felt like Kathy was hiding something. Over and over, she kept admiring its beauty. "This tattoo is made by her talented brother," I remarked to her, who looked surprised and with awe in her eyes. She then chuckled. How lucky she is to have this beauty in her. I finally felt like I understood the essence of what Kathy and her brother wanted to express with her art. Once we're back from our trip, I'll invite Kathy to go shopping. Whenever she walks around town with me, even in the height of summer, she always wears long sleeves. She's probably afraid of running into someone I know. I wish she'd be more confident, like when she used to wear that sleeveless dress often when she was single. "Let's go on a date like we used to when you were single," I'll say to invite her. I'm sure she'll look surprised for a moment and then break into a smile. I found myself in a tight spot when my drunken boss coerced me into hitting on a Latina woman. My Spanish is terrible, but I innocently parroted what he told me, prawn nada, which I later learned means you look like a prawn nada. Suddenly, the air around us froze. A slap flew from the woman. "You really suck at Spanish." "Ha, pa, that's hilarious." My boss wasn't just laughing at my humiliation. He was filming it on his smartphone. When I woke up the next day, my phone was bombarded with notifications. "You're famous worldwide now. You're done for." My name is Joseph. I'm a typical office worker at a small to medium-sized company in New York. I describe myself as diligent, reliably getting through work, At 24, I married my high school sweetheart, and recently we welcomed a daughter. Although work keeps me busy, I lead a fulfilling life both personally and professionally. I work in the sales department, visiting clients daily, often leading to overtime. My wife always encourages me, saying, "Leave Maddie to me and focus on your work," which helps me get through it all. On weekends, I tackle house chores, but my wife reassures me, saying, "You're tired from working long hours. Don't worry, let me handle this." She's very dependable. Despite this, I sometimes face challenges at work. My direct boss, Mr. Johnson, is a lightweight and unreliable. He often speaks nonsense to clients, causing complaints, and I find myself cleaning up his messes. He got the managerial position despite lacking skills, probably because he's a distant relative of the company president. It's an open secret in the office. I've been dealing with the impossible demands he places on me. However, Mr. Johnson has a likable personality and a knack for quickly building rapport with new clients, a skill I haven't fully developed yet. Despite everything, I believe we've built a good relationship based on mutual reliance. But there's one thing I wish Mr. Johnson would stop doing: getting drunk at parties and ordering me to pick up random women. I've refused several times, feeling guilty towards my wife and knowing women would be annoyed by me approaching them. However, once Mr. Johnson gets drunk, he becomes tyrannical and threatens. "If you don't do as I say, you're fired." Apparently, Mr. Johnson, a single man, gets jealous of me for marrying young. At these drinking parties, he always brings trouble to me with his unreasonable demands. Even though I know it's unreasonable, I can't defy him, so I reluctantly approach women, feeling guilty towards my wife. One day, after securing a major contract, our sales department held a celebration at a fancy Chinese restaurant. The mood was upbeat. As the night progressed and everyone got tipsy, Mr. Johnson, already wasted, ordered me to hit on women as usual. I felt a rebellious urge, influenced by alcohol. Mr. Johnson pointed out a brunette Latina woman at a table. I refused, saying I couldn't hit on a foreigner, especially since I couldn't speak Spanish. Mr. Johnson dismissed my words and insisted, "It's fine, just go and tell her, presa zapa." With no knowledge of Spanish, I asked what that meant. He replied, "It's a way to describe a slim and stylish woman. Don't worry, it's a basic compliment phrase." Trusting his words, I approached the Latina woman. I awkwardly started with, "Hello, how are you?" She kindly replied with an excited, "Oh yeah." Confused, I glanced back at my table. There was Mr. Johnson with his smartphone, moving, "Hurry up, say it, or you're fired." Realizing I couldn't fake it, I braced myself and said, "You look like a prawn nada," in Spanish. The moment I spoke, everyone froze. The Latina woman stood up and slapped me. I was so shocked that I sank down to the floor, not understanding what just happened. I was completely lost, leaving me behind. The woman became emotional and started yelling at me in rapid Spanish. Frozen, I remembered her reaction right before she got angry. She was responding to "Pesa zuna puta." That's when I realized I'd been tricked by Mr. Johnson. Feeling intense anger towards Mr. Johnson, I knew I had to apologize to the woman. I repeatedly apologized. Her blonde friend, who came to dine with her, calmed her down and in broken English said, "It's okay, brother, leave this to me." After I apologized once again, I returned to my seat. When I returned to my seat, I found Mr. Johnson there, holding his smartphone and laughing uproariously. He told me the truth, laughing, "You really are terrible at Spanish. I'll teach you. What you said to her means you look like a H." That was so funny that even I got angry and retorted, "Mr. Johnson, I'd already told you I want you to stop these unreasonable demands to hit on women. And now you've made me insult a woman I don't even know, a complete stranger. This is going too far." However, Mr. Johnson showed no signs of remorse and mocked me, saying, "It's your fault for not understanding Spanish. Why are you getting all upset with me?" It's true that I can't speak Spanish, but that's exactly why I asked for clarification. And it was Mr. Johnson who gave me the misleading information. I looked around for help, but either everyone found it funny that I couldn't speak Spanish, or they just averted their eyes, trying to suppress their laughter. Even I was infuriated by this situation, and although some colleagues tried to calm me down, it wasn't enough to quell my anger, and I left the scene. The next day, I woke up to incomprehensible messages on my phone. Is this the number of rubbish of society? You're a disgrace to the States. Never go outside again. I received these unfathomable insults from unknown email addresses and phone numbers. Groggy, I initially thought these were spam or scam messages. However, as I scrutinized the messages, I realized they were all criticizing last night's incident. Why they know about it? I was terrified, covered in goosebumps, and my mind went blank. Why am I receiving so many messages from unknown people? Despite feeling sick and scared, I scoured through the messages to find a cause. That's when I found a video posted on a certain social media platform. It was a short video, only a few seconds in length, capturing me getting slapped by the foreign woman after saying an inappropriate phrase in Spanish. The comment section was filled with harsh criticisms, such as, "a disgrace to the American people," "a stain on the face of the States." There were messages in foreign languages which I couldn't read. The video was uploaded anonymously on social media. However, there was no blurring or pixelation on myself, the woman, or the restaurant to conceal our identities. That's it. I tracked down the address of this idiot. I found out the company he works for. Interestingly, their stock price is plummeting. Quite hilarious. My identity was already exposed on the internet, including my real name, social media ID, address, and workplace. Fortunately, it seemed the foreign woman was only shown from behind, so her identity wasn't exposed, but my social media account was flooded with baseless messages. The notifications just kept increasing instead of decreasing. I turned off all notifications, but the situation had already spiraled out of control. Friends were calling me to confirm if it was me, but I couldn't dare to answer the phone due to the numerous calls from unknown bashers. I explained the situation to my wife and borrowed her phone to contact a close friend. I told them that I was deceived by my boss into saying those words and that the video was edited to emphasize the incident. However, I sincerely apologized to the woman. Unfortunately, the video is already on the internet, and my personal information, such as my phone number, is out there as well. Because of this, I hesitate to make calls. I asked my friends to spread the word that it was a setup and a false accusation. Lastly, I informed them that my phone is in chaos, so I can't be reached. Despite the morning chaos, I went to work to confront Mr. Johnson. Due to the video on social media, my company had been exposed, and by the time I arrived, there were onlookers who had probably seen the infamous video gathered at the company's entrance. Unable to enter through the main door in such a situation, I went in through the back door. The office was in chaos. The receptionists and call center agents were overwhelmed by inquiries and prank calls. As a result, shortly after I arrived at the office, I was summoned by the president and executives to explain the video. I informed them that the video footage was from yesterday's incident, that I had been deceived by Mr. Johnson, and explained that he was the one who filmed it and uploaded it on social media. After hearing my desperate plea, they responded, "All right, we understand your point. Let's discuss this with Mr. Johnson as well." Subsequently, Mr. Johnson was also summoned to join the discussion. Immediately, the president and executives addressed Mr. Johnson, asking, "You're aware of the video featuring your subordinate, Mr. Wayne, aren't you? He claims that he was deceived by you and that the video was recorded at that time. Is this true?" However, Mr. Johnson denied any involvement, saying, "I have no idea about that, and of course, I didn't record any such video." I would never force or deceive my subordinate like that. In fact, I was trying to stop him from hitting on women while drunk, but he wouldn't listen. In my attempt to intervene, we caused a bit of a commotion, and I felt the other customers' eyes on us. So, I think that video was probably taken and shared by another customer in the restaurant. The restaurant went particularly quiet when he was slapped. He made a false statement, purposely alleging that I willingly hit on women and denied my accusation of being deceived by him to engage in such misconduct, all in an attempt to absolve himself of any responsibility. But I countered his claims. His statements are all false. Mr. Johnson has a drinking problem. Every time he drinks, he never fails to pressure me into these unreasonable demands. It's not just an isolated incident from yesterday. It's a recurring pattern. I've pleaded with him to stop, but he threatens to fire me if I don't comply, and his demands have been escalating. This is the result, Mr. President. If you call the sales department employees who regularly join us for drinks, they can confirm the truth. I appealed to the president and executives, but the president, perhaps wanting to protect Mr. Johnson, who is a distant relative, deflected the issue and suggested that the real problem was my behavior. Even when I argued that I was deceived by Mr. Johnson, they responded, "Even if you were deceived, the problem is that you didn't avoid the situation and acted on it. Did you really believe Mr. Johnson could fire you on his own? Besides, your lack of basic Spanish knowledge is also a problem. Why didn't you verify it yourself instead of just listening to him? Ultimately, it's your fault, and your actions have caused trouble for the company and affected our work." I was sternly reprimanded. Indeed, I must bear some responsibility for my lack of knowledge. However, I couldn't accept that Mr. Johnson's tyranny was being shifted onto me as my responsibility. I tried to argue further, but ultimately, I couldn't go against the president. I was held responsible and ultimately dismissed from my job. Dejectedly, I returned to the sales department and began to pack up my belongings at my desk. Mr. Johnson, who returned a bit later, approached me with a laugh. As soon as he saw me, he mocked, "You were ridiculous till the end. Now you're exposed, not just in the States but worldwide. You're finished." Infuriated by Mr. Johnson's unrepentant attitude, I confronted him. "Mr. Johnson, I'm fired now, so let me speak plainly. You've ruined my life with your lies and fabrications. I have a wife and child. How are you going to make this right?" Yet Mr. Johnson, showing no sign of remorse, replied with a laugh, "You should take responsibility for your own actions. What are you going to do? Resort to violence? That would really ruin your life." He even added disdainfully, "The problem is that a low-level employee like you brags about being married and having kids as if your life is so fulfilling. You really are a fool for not understanding such basic things." No matter what I said, he never seemed to understand. Considering the ongoing circumstances in the office, there was no chance for me to win. I felt the urge to yell out in anger, but doing so would only prove that what Mr. Johnson said was correct and truly ruined my life. In the end, there was no other option but to resign. There was nothing I could do. I left the company with a heavy heart, feeling helpless, losing my job, and facing difficulties in finding new employment. I worried about how I would support my family. I wondered how I was going to provide for my wife and child from now on. As these thoughts troubled me on my way home from the office, I found unfamiliar people surrounding my house. I immediately hid, feeling a renewed sense of fear from the impact of social media. I managed to enter my house unnoticed through the back. Already informed of the situation, my wife anxiously asked, "Are you okay?" It seemed that while I was at work, onlookers who had seen the video gathered in front of our house. At first, they threw things and yelled, "Societal trash, come out." But my wife, remaining calm, called the police, and the commotion subsided. However, even then, the onlookers didn't leave. They didn't do anything further but stubbornly stayed in front of our house. The police apparently told us, "We can act if there's actual harm being done. But if there isn't, there's not much we can do. This left us in a situation where we couldn't even leave our house. If this situation persists, our daily lives will surely be greatly affected. Anyway, I have to tackle this situation immediately. First, I need to get my wife and child to a safe place. With that thought, I told my wife to stay at her parents' house. I checked the surroundings again through the back door and left the house as if fleeing in the night. I then escorted my wife and child to the train station. "What are you going to do now?" she asked. As I bid farewell to my wife, I put on a brave front and said, "Don't worry. The frenzy on social media is always intense at first. It'll probably settle down in a week. I'll manage somehow until then." With these words meant to reassure her, we parted ways for the time being. As I approached my home, I was frightened by the increased number of onlookers and couldn't enter my house. Instead, I sat dejectedly on a bench in a nearby park. Though I had reassured my wife earlier, I felt desperate, wondering what to do next. That's when a mysterious blonde woman appeared and approached me, saying, "There you are." I immediately braced myself, thinking she was one of the onlookers who had seen the video and come to my house. But soon, I realized she was the woman involved in yesterday's incident. She had dyed her hair, and I expected her to complain about my actions yesterday and the exposure on social media. I immediately started apologizing profusely as soon as I recognized her. However, the blonde woman started talking to me in fluent English, saying, "No need to apologize. I know it's not your fault. I'm Catherine. What's your name?" Bewildered, I replied, "My name is Joseph." Catherine shared a lot with me. She's quite a famous influencer, broadcasting about her life in the States to the outside world. She allegedly has many followers worldwide due to her beauty. She primarily posts pictures of famous spots to introduce them to her followers. Additionally, she creates videos containing content about her daily life for her followers in the States. Yesterday, she was at a dinner with a friend and wore a brunette wig to avoid being recognized by her fans. "That's why I'm blonde today," Catherine said, seemingly proud of her disguise. I watched the video and read all the comments. It's centered on the act of slapping you, triggering this entire situation. Now, everyone seems to think it's acceptable to scorn you so much. It has turned into such a mess. I'm truly sorry for what I've done. Catherine apologized, looking remorseful about the incident that happened yesterday. As Catherine had nothing to apologize for, I hastily said, "Even though I was deceived, I was the one who made the disrespectful remark. I'm truly sorry for my insulting words and for making you upset." With that, I apologized once again. Yet, Catherine said, "You were deceived by a friend, right? You obviously didn't seem to know what you were saying. I realized it when your friends burst into laughter as you returned to your table. Also, I should have been more composed because I was aware that your friends seemed quite intoxicated, and I know those people would do something terribly embarrassing under the influence of alcohol. Furthermore, I can't stand people who betray their friends like that. I regret slapping you now. I should have listened to your side. I'll help you stand up to your enemy." With that, Catherine took my arm. Though I was confused and overwhelmed by her words, Catherine pulled my arm and led me away. She didn't seem bothered at all. Once we reached the main street, she hailed a taxi and pushed me to the back seat, directing the driver to our destination. Inside the taxi, I was still in a state of confusion. We ended up at a law office. Here's my legal advisor. They helped me a lot in the States. Being an influencer involves a lot of tricky situations, so I rely on them frequently, Catherine explained with a smile as she introduced me to her lawyer. The lawyer, already briefed by Catherine, seemed to understand my situation. "I understand your difficult situation. Leave it to me. I specialize in social media-related legal matters. The video has been posted anonymously by an individual, so we definitely have a winning case." With the lawyer's solid assurance, I began to feel hopeful. After signing a contract, the lawyer promptly started handling the case. A few days later, I visited the company with my lawyer, having an appointment. We were smoothly escorted to the president's office. As soon as we entered, the president, looking a bit embarrassed, guided us to our seats. "Mr. President, my client is claiming damages from the company," Mr. Johnson, my lawyer, said. The president, looking irritated, replied, "You seem to be making a big deal out of a matter we're still dealing with inquiries related to you. You must have some substantial basis for coming here with such claims, right?" The lawyer confidently began to explain. "Firstly, this involves unjust termination coupled with a lack of proper investigation. If the company terminates its employee, due process should be strictly followed. Additionally, the company is obliged to provide severance pay. However, in my case, none was complied with. These facts constitute an illegal dismissal. Thus, I claimed compensation," my lawyer continued. "Regarding the video on social media, it contains defamatory content. Although it was anonymously posted, I obtained the name and address of the person who posted it in my legal capacity. It turned out to be Mr. Johnson." Without a doubt, hearing the lawyer's explanation and realizing they were at a disadvantage with solid evidence against them, the president hastily called Mr. Johnson to the office. Upon entering the room, Mr. Johnson had a defiant look, as if to say, "Why are you here?" Initially brazen, as the lawyer reiterated the explanation and presented the evidence. He gradually turned pale upon learning he would face charges for posting the video without consent from Catherine and me. Mr. Johnson broke down and apologized profusely. "Your apologies mean nothing now. As I've said before, your actions are destroying my life. Why did you make me do such a thing? Didn't you think it would come back to haunt you?" I confronted Mr. Johnson once more. He then revealed everything. He hated me. He was jealous. He was troubled by his inability to perform well at work and found it painful to always be saved by me. Furthermore, I got married and was blessed with a child. For him, I was having a successful life, and it only fueled his insecurity and jealousy. That's why he set up a trap. It was a joke. He captured a perfect scene of me getting slapped and make a sensational video. So, he uploaded it for fun. That was his story. The lawyer interjected, "You claim it was just for fun, as if you meant no harm. However, you must have felt guilty when you posted that video anonymously. Your actions clearly had malicious intent and are unforgivable." Mr. Johnson had no room for rebuttal. "If you agree to the settlement we propose, we won't take this to court," the lawyer said. When he uttered those words, Mr. Johnson and the president hung their heads in defeat, realizing that a hopeless lawsuit would only tarnish the company's image further. The president refused to go to court. Consequently, Mr. Johnson and the company agreed to pay the compensation demanded by Kaffer and Eni. The legal action against the video spread on social media was swiftly handled by the lawyer, gradually leading to its resolution. Additionally, Catherine, in her new video, explicitly explained the facts surrounding the incident and informed the viewers that the man in the video was, in fact, a victim. He was forced to utter such an insulting phrase, even though he didn't understand its meaning. Furthermore, she cautioned the viewers against making jokes that could harm others. Thanks to her message, people lost interest in the incident. Later, I met with Mr. Johnson to sign the legal documents regarding compensation for damages. Then, I told him, "I know you were often casual in your approach and given leeway due to being the president's distant relative. However, your personality, brightness, and negotiation skills led to many successful contracts. While you may not have been as skilled in the job compared to others, your excellence in winning over clients and your exceptional communication skills were evident. You excelled at finding and retaining new clients. After that, either I or someone else would follow up, eventually leading to a contract. Without your sales abilities, we wouldn't have been able to secure half of those contracts." Hearing this, Mr. Johnson began weeping and said to me, "I am very sorry. I know it's too late to change anything now. Mr. Johnson didn't lose his job because he was the president's distant relative, but rather because he was demoted to an ordinary employee at a distant branch. He now has to rebuild his job from scratch. The president apologized to me again and offered to rescind my dismissal, asking me to return to the company, but I politely declined. Hey Joseph, what's next on the schedule? Next, we have a meeting with the organizers of the cosplay event at the Anime Expo. Catherine, could you go through these 2 anime characters and pick your favorite attire during the ride? It would be great to consider at least 2 or 3 sets based on the other party's preferences. Okay. Oh, I wonder if I can dress up as Maddie's favorite character. I left my former company and joined the entertainment agency where Catherine works. My steadfast and serious character was well received at the new company, and now I am tasked with managing Catherine's work. After the company and Mr. Johnson paid me compensation and the case was closed, I moved to an apartment block with a high security system to stay with my wife and child, who were seeking temporary shelter there. My wife was overjoyed and relieved to see me safe. Meanwhile, Catherine became good friends with my wife and often visits our home. My wife was grateful for the connection with a famous influencer, but I felt somewhat uneasy about it. Recently, Catherine uploaded adorable moments of my daughter on her social media, which apparently went viral. Of course, to protect her privacy, she made sure her face was unrecognizable with digital stickers. My daughter, Maddie, adores Catherine, asking, "Is Catherine coming over today?" And Catherine seems to enjoy her company too. Social media can be a scary tool depending on how it's used, but it can also be a warm place where people from around the world can compliment your child. Above all, unlike an ordinary office worker, it has the potential to generate immense wealth, but it can also lead to losses. Because my daughter's video on Catherine's account went viral, we received a bonus from the company, and my wife and I were thrilled, praising Maddie. However, having once been burned by social media, we remain cautious about its use.